Can the local disaster risk reduction management funds be used as cash or financial assistance for families affected or residents affected by calamities or disasters? Hello everyone, ito po muli ang inyong lingkod, si Attorney Ian Kenneth Bilocero. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and you are watching APO Shares. Join me once again on our third episode. Pangatlo na po natin po ito as we make learning a monthly habit through APO Shares. Ito yung knowledge sharing program ng DILG Cebu City on local governance. Pero bago po ang lahat, don't forget po na mag-like, share, comment, and subscribe at i-turn on yung notification bell nyo po para ma-update po kayo sa mga new episodes ng ating YouTube channel. For today's episode po, pag-uusapan po natin ngayon kung yung mga local government units natin, pwede ba nilang magamit yung local DRRM funds nila for cash or financial assistance para sa mga affected families, affected residents ng calamities or disasters. Ito, mainit-init pa po yung topic natin ngayon dahil bago pa lang tayong nasalanta ng Typhoon Odette. Okay, so before that, let me give you a brief discussion muna. Yung mga purposes ng LDRRM fund natin, yung sources, yung allocation, then utilization po tayo. So, ano yung mga legal authorities natin dito? Yun yung Republic Act 10121 or the Philippine DRRM Act of 2010 at yung Joint Memorandum Circular 2013-1 ng National DRRM Council, DBM at DILG. March 25, 2013 na issue po yan. Okay. So, let's proceed with the purposes. Ano yung mga purposes ng local DRRM fund natin? First, yan yung pre-disaster preparedness programs. Ito, one of the significant features ng RA 10121 po ito. Bakit? Kasi yung old law natin, yung Section 324, Paragraph D of the Local Government Code of 1991 as amended by RA 8185, wala pong pre-disaster preparedness program doon. Hindi po pwedeng gamitin. Dahil ang definition ng calamity fund doon sa old law, pwede lang magamit for relief, for rehabilitation, reconstruction, and other works and services. So in other words, magagamit lang siya during and after the occurrence of the calamity. Pero sa RA 10121, expressly provided na pwedeng magamit sa pre-disaster preparedness programs natin. Okay. Number 2, yung post-disaster activities or programs natin. Number 3, yung payment ng calamity insurance premiums. Pwede yan sa properties at pwede sa insurance premiums ng accredited community disaster volunteers natin. Then number 4, para sa relief and recovery programs natin. Ito ay intended to normalize as quick as possible po yung situation and living condition ng mga taong affected ng calamity, disaster, and even yung complex emergencies. Okay, so yan po yung mga purposes ng RA local DRRM fund under RA 10121. Okay. Number 2, what are the sources ng local DRRM fund natin? So basically, may 4 po tayong sources. 1, yung not less than 5% of the estimated revenue from regular sources para po sa disaster risk management activities natin. So, ibig sabihin, not less than 5%, pwede siyang maging more than 5% for DRRM activities po natin. Okay. Number 2, ito yung tinatawag nating unexpended balance of the local DRRM fund in the preceding years, no, within the 5-year validity period of the special trust fund. Okay. So ito yung unexpended local DRRM fund, yung unexpended or unobligated QRF, the Quick Response Fund. Didiscuss natin pagdating natin ng allocation. At yung DRRM fund intended for MOOE, maintenance and other operating expenses. So, ito, isa rin itong significant feature ng RA 10121. Bakit po? Kasi yung lumang batas natin, pag may unexpended balance for the budget year, yung calamity fund noon, magre-revert back kaagad yan sa general fund. So, magiging available na siya for reappropriation. Pero sa RA 10121, hindi siya magre-revert back kaagad sa general fund, sa unappropriated surplus. Pupunta muna yan, mag-a-accrue muna yan, itra-transfer muna yan sa special trust fund. For how many years? For 5 years. Yung 5-year validity period. 5 years pa yan mapupunta sa special trust fund natin. For what purpose? Solely or exclusively for purposes of supporting the DRRM activities ng LDRRM Council po. Within 5 years po yan. Okay. So, how about yung mga unexpended balances ng LDRRM fund ng for capital outlay po? Ano pong mangyayari? So, per guidelines, it shall be made continuing in the general fund books. So, yung mga proyekto under capital outlay ng DRRM fund, no, na pinunduhan ng Local Disaster Risk Reduction Management Fund, hanggat makompleto yan, kung makokompleto na po yan at magkakaroon pa rin ng savings, yung savings na yan ay magiging available din yan para magamit sa DRRM activities as provided in the local DRRM fund investment plan po. Okay. So, in the event na magkakaroon pa rin ng unutilized amount after 5 years, that's the time na i-revert back na yan sa unappropriated surplus ng general fund. And that amount shall be available for other social services programs, no, after subsequent enactment by the local sanggunian concerned. Okay. So, ngayon, yan yung pangalawa na source. Third source, yung mga funds transferred from, manggagaling sa National DRRM Fund upon approval by the President. Number 4, yung mga funds received from other local government units or yung mga funds received from other external sources. So yung last 3 sources natin, last 2 sources pala, yung third at fourth, ang treatment po natin dyan ay magiging special trust liability po yan. Okay. So yan po yung 4 na sources natin ng local DRRM fund. So ulitin ko, yung not less than 5%, yung unexpended balance, yung funds transferred from the National DRRM Fund, at yung funds from LGUs and other external sources. Okay. Let's proceed with the allocation now. So, paano ba ina-allocate yung local DRRM fund natin? So, there should be a plan. Merong plano. Ito yung tinatawag nating local DRRM plan natin. So, ito yung basehan at dapat itong plano na ito ay saklaw niya yung 4 na thematic areas natin. Ito yung disaster prevention and mitigation, disaster preparedness, disaster response, at disaster recovery and rehabilitation. Okay, so yan yung 4 na thematic areas. So, meron tayong tinatawag na 30% at 70%. Ano yung 30%? Yan yung lump sum na quick response fund natin or tinatawag nating standby fund. For what purpose? For relief and recovery programs po yan. As I've said, ano yung purpose ng relief and recovery program? To normalize as quickly as possible po yung situation and living condition ng mga affected na residente po. So yan yung 30%. Then, 70%. Magagamit po yan before, during, and after. So, pwede sa disaster prevention and mitigation, pwede sa disaster preparedness, pwede sa disaster response, and recovery and rehabilitation. Okay, so, balikan po natin yung 30%. Paano magagamit yung 30%? Kailangan po may deklarasyon. Sino ang magde-declare? Ang local sanggunian na under state of calamity, yung local government unit nila. Okay. So, ano yung basis ng declaration ng local sanggunian? It should be based on the recommendation made by the local DRRM council natin. Based on the DANA. Kilala nyo po ba si DANA? DANA, yung Damage Assessment and Needs Analysis natin. Ito rin yung kaibahan nung lumang batas natin. Kasi yung local sanggunian magde-declare based on the recommendation of the local chief executive. Pero dito, pagdating sa RA 10121, based on the recommendation of the local DRRM council based on the DANA. So meron tayong means of verification, yung Damage Assessment and Needs Analysis po. Let's proceed now to the utilization of the local DRRM fund ng mga local government units. At dito, pag-uusapan na natin yung Joint Memorandum Circular 2013-1 ng National DRRM Council, DBM, at DILG. Ito yung guidelines ng allocation and utilization ng local DRRM fund natin. Sige. Makikita po natin dito sa guidelines na ito yung enumerations ng mga specific allowable PPAs that may be funded by the LGU's DRRM fund. So, every thematic area may kanya-kanya silang programs, projects, and activities. Okay. So, dito, mapapansin natin na yung pagbigay or pag-grant ng cash or financial assistance sa mga affected families ng disasters or calamities, hindi siya magfo-fall squarely within the purview of the allowable PPAs under JMC 2013-1. Okay. However, mapapansin din natin yung enumerations ng PPAs every thematic area. Makikita natin doon yung isang item, yung common denominator nila. May common denominator sila. Yung other programs or projects of similar nature and considered necessary. Kaya kung titingnan natin, meron ditong flexibility na ibinigay sa mga local government units to identify other programs or projects of similar nature and considered necessary. And I think this is also consistent with the fiscal autonomy given to the local government units wherein LGUs have the power to allocate their resources according or in accordance with their own priorities. And such autonomy is indispensable to the viability of the policy of decentralization. Kaya, considering the flexibility given to the local government units in their disaster activities, pursuant to RA 10121 and pursuant to its implementing guidelines, especially yung item 5.3 ng JMC 2013-1, yung disaster response. Yung disaster response, sometimes called disaster relief, which is predominantly focused on the immediate and short-term needs ng mga affected communities or affected residents ng disaster or calamities. Ito yung pagbibigay ng provision, pagbibigay ng services or assistance, no, during or immediately after disaster in order to save lives, in order to meet the basic subsistence needs of the affected people, among others. So, in my personal humble opinion, LGUs are in a better position to determine or to identify the other programs or projects that may be funded from their allocation, such as cash or financial assistance to their affected residents. Pero, gusto ko lang i-emphasize na may kondisyon po ito. Provided LGUs may be able to justify that the same are of similar nature with those allowed PPAs under JMC 2013-1 and they are considered necessary. So with that, LGUs may grant cash or financial assistance provided the local government units can justify that said assistance is similar to or fall under the allowed programs, projects, and activities consistent with that JMC 2013-1 plus considered necessary as determined by the local government units. At dyan po nagtatapos yung discussion po natin at samahan niyo po ako muli as we make learning a monthly habit through APO Shares. Because the more we learn, the more we grow, the better we can serve others. Until our next episode po, pero huwag niyong kalimutan i-like at mag-subscribe. Thank you for watching APO Shares and ingat!